Hello and welcome to a special episode of Galina, Rivina Podcastina, the show where I try to be the person my dog thinks I am. I decided to do something a little special for New Year's Day. I rarely do these solo episodes, but I thought it might be a nice way to catch everybody up on what's going on with me, acknowledge the year that we all have had, that you have had, that I have had, and what we're all hopefully looking forward to with this fresh start in 2026. So I'll start with the background is probably a little unusual. If you've been watching the show for a long time, you know that this is not where I normally record. I'm between homes right now. Not in a, oh no, are you homeless? Do we need to start a GoFundMe kind of way? Just in that my lease ended here in Los Angeles in Marina del Rey. And as I've spoken of many times on the show, I have made the decision to move out to Austin, Texas. My lease there starts on January 10th. I didn't want to go before the holidays. So I've got this in between time where I'm staying with friends. I'm currently in Reseda. Then I'm going to an Airbnb for a little bit. And then I leave LA on January 8th, which is such a terrifying reality, even though I've been mentally preparing for it for a good 9 months now. Pretty crazy to think that. But, it's been a wild year for everybody. I don't think anybody really came out of this thing unscathed. I think it was a tumultuous year filled with a lot of growth, a lot of learning about ourselves, a lot of you maybe feeling like you're not sure if you're on the correct path and having to question things and having to let go of things that maybe you never thought you'd even have to let go of. It's just one of those years of recognizing that not everything that we believe in our hearts is meant for us is actually meant for us. And there's going to be some intervention from outside forces sometimes and reckonings almost. It truly felt like a year of reckoning. And what I really love about being chronically online is that I get to find things and come across resources of people who okay, let me go on a side tangent here. I'm obviously a little bit woo woo, but I tend to kind of toe the line with it and not necessarily subscribe to things that don't have scientific based evidence. Like manifestation definitely does rest in science. There are proven research and anecdotal studies and things that, if we just it's cognitive bias basically is the better way of putting it. Is when you have a cognitive bias for positivity and for expecting good things, you're more likely to notice them in your environment and clock them, and that is research backed. So that's not some woo woo nonsense that is coming out of some unknown ethereal land of complete and total delusion, right? It's not based in delusion, it's fact. However, I'm normally pretty not into astrology, but I'm coming across all these just wisdom that I can't ignore almost about the Chinese zodiac. And I'm sure if any of you are into that at all, you've already seen people talking about how 2025 in numerology was a year of 9. It was a completion year. It's also in the Chinese zodiac the year of the snake. So there's been a lot of talk of how this year has represented shedding and let go of identities that we've been holding on to, relationships, jobs, things that weren't meant for us and that we had to leave behind. And a snake, it's so symbolic, right? It sheds so that it can grow and renew itself. It's not a shedding in a negative way. I'm going to go ahead and stop myself right here because I am not in a position to give it the true description that I think honors it the best. So I found this great clip on TikTok. So let's watch this together of what the zodiac means for this incoming year of the horse.
I did not plan on making this video, but when I have to come to a full stop as I'm driving and something needs to come through, it needs to come through for you. So there's a lot of people who are talking about their predictions for 2026, and I think most of them are great. And 2026 is the year of the horse, but very specifically, it's the year of the fire horse. But very, very, very specifically, it's a year 10. So a lot of people are saying it's a year 1, which is true in numerology, 1 plus 0 equals 1. But really, it's a year 10. And so that's really important because energetically, that's binary code. There's a special code there. So year 10 is a year of creation. Year 1 is a year of new beginnings, new starts. And the reason why the 0 is important is because it is co-creation. So it's a new start with the number 1, and the 0 is basically infinity. The 0 is source. So it's co-creation with source. And the importance of it being a horse year and a fire horse year is because for those of you who took my class on the fire era, which is the dominant element of the next 20 years is fire, yes, has to do with passion. It has to do with transformation. It has to do with the heart, which is also spirituality and compassion. So for those of us who are moving into this year 1, year 10, cleansing ourselves of who we are no longer, of our inauthentic selves, we are going to be propelled into our destiny. And the fire year is a year of profound transformation and spiritual growth. A lot of your superpowers are being seeded right now in terms of the cleansing that is happening, because we're coming from a year 9 and an ending, a wrapping up of things, if you will. And we're moving into a year 10/year 1, which is your co-creation with your divine powers, with source energy. And it is going to happen fast, and it's going to happen intensely, and you will be supported through this. And so what I'm trying to say is the heart is a huge pillar and a huge theme of this year. If you have heart issues, please take care of yourself. Please do everything that you need to take care of your heart. The heart also is your heart work, your life's work, your compassion for yourself and others. I just made a video on compassion. Please watch that. If that term is bringing something, it's triggering something in you, because that's very intentional. That's very important. And it is a year of your supernatural awakening. And for many people, it is a year of their supernatural awakening. The truth cannot be denied. The truth that we are beings that live beyond the 3D, beyond just human logic, it can no longer be denied. Starting in 2026, and it will really ascend in 2027. So if you are watching this, just know that your spiritual powers, your psychic powers, your intuitive gifts are activating.
Okay, that creator is Anna Tsui, Tsui. I found her on TikTok, so if you want to go and see what other videos she has and what she's talking about, I just wanted to give her credit there. But I really like that explanation. I think it dives into what I was trying to elaborate on, and I was giving you guys word salad, and she actually did a really excellent job explaining the significance of the snake year, the horse year, the numerology of it all, which numerology is a fun path to go down, even if you don't necessarily like are rooted in a deep belief about it. I do think that it's kind of nice to, as I get more and more spiritual, look at numbers as some kind of sign that something is going on, like a little wink from the universe, from a higher power, whatever it is. And again, without getting like really carried away with it. So, here's a few lessons that I have learned that, if they're helpful at all for anyone, these are just things that stuck to me in 2025 about money. So I think this was a pretty tough year for a lot of people. I know it was a tough year for me financially. And there's kind of this misalignment where they're telling us, and when I mean they, the higher powers, government, all these different media that we consume that are forced down our throats, that the stock market seems to have like a mind of its own, and just because that's doing well doesn't mean that it's an accurate representation of the hardship and pain that people are actually feeling and going through. I know a lot of very qualified people that lost jobs or weren't able to find jobs, and it leads me to one of my favorite books that I read in 2025, which was A Generation of Sociopaths by, I believe his name is Gary Bruce Cannon, and it's kind of about how boomers ruined everything. And it was a fun read, and I think it really did a good job outlining how we got into this mess, how the policies that happened under Reagan when that generation was younger and voting him in, how that had all of these implications. And we're crescendoing. I've heard a lot of people use the term late stage capitalism to describe where we're at. And it really does feel like the powers that be, the fact that all the laws and regulations are bought by lobbyists and corporations and billionaires who have the money to exert control and power, and they certainly do. And that's heavy with a lot of people. But I think if we can make light of it, the good news is that there's still a really strong creator economy. There's still opportunities for entrepreneurs to grow because of how the internet is. There's all this ability to get free advertising now. You know, you can go viral, and that kind of reach used to cost people thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars to be able to go super viral. And now, for the same money that advertisers used to pay to get a commercial on the Super Bowl, you can just get on TikTok and have a viral TikTok and have 10 million people see it. And now all of a sudden you're a household name. So it kind of feels like this mystical way that we can take our power back. It sucks that all of the media is controlled by an elite few and that those people are so cozied up to at least the US government and definitely lobbying to have things their way. And who knows what they're doing behind the scenes as far as whether they're silencing certain creators and pushing down certain narratives to make sure that they don't get out. But at the end of the day, thankfully, we're still in a place in the US where we have our autonomy. And that's the important thing to remember, is that if you're thinking of setting out on your own, being brave, starting a business, if that's in your thoughts for 2026, do it. Be brave about it. Find a way to do it. Find a way to honor that, because no, like, job security is a myth. It doesn't really matter what you're doing. There's like just a few jobs that sure you're probably going to be able to have forever. If it's not with one company, you can go somewhere else and do it with a different company. But this idea that you can have like a quote unquote good, solid job is such a myth. And I think that should be freeing for somebody who's maybe been on the fence about whether they want to do some kind of entrepreneurial path, whether you want to take that kind of path. I think that this is like a freeing idea. Okay, I'm rambling. Let's move on. Here's some things I've learned about relationships in 2025. I'm going to start with this quote. The quote is by David J. Lieberman. I read a book of his. I'm blanking on the title right now, but this quote just really resonated with me. It's, "The quality of a relationship is determined by the person who wants it the least." I'll say that again. The quality of a relationship is determined by the person who wants it the least. And I think that the reason that this quote really, really resonated with me is because it is an invitation to set boundaries and to meet people where they're at and to fully see them for who they are and not who they're presenting as or who we're projecting onto them. That's huge. Let's look at this as far as, a business relationship, this quote. The quality of the business relationship, with you being the business owner and the customer being the person who wants the relationship the least, they're driving things, right? Like, you have to meet them where they're at so you don't push them away. I think it's the same in friendships. I think it's the same in romantic relationships. If someone doesn't quote unquote need you, or they're not the ones that are like vying to get you, then the way that that person is treating you should tell you everything about the quality of that relationship. And if you want to follow through with it, if you want to keep chasing it, if you want to keep putting forth effort that doesn't feel reciprocated, it's just a really good quote to lean back on, to be like, hey, how good is this dynamic? How good is this friendship with this person who seems pretty resistant to actually following through on the friendship? We all have those people that we try to make plans with, and it feels like the effort is so one-sided and it's just us chasing this person around. And at what point do you stop to realize, hey, this relationship actually isn't that good and isn't really benefiting me and probably isn't worth all of the energy that I'm putting out, when this is the treatment that I'm getting back? And I think it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can be freeing, because the person that wants the relationship the least is telling you everything you need to know as the person who wants it the most about whether you should even want it to begin with. Another thing that I really liked, this was a lesson that I learned from my episode with marriage counselor Monica Tanner. You can find that episode. I don't remember the number, but it's definitely in the catalog from earlier this year. I think probably spring. This is about problems. She said, if we don't deal with it when it's a seed, we will deal with it when it's a weed. And again, this comes back to boundaries and speaking your truth and understanding that unexpressed emotions or unexpressed thoughts are predetermined or premeditated resentments. I think that's the quote, right? Everyone's heard some version of that, that we can't expect people in our lives to read our minds. And so it's important if something is really your truth and it's bothering you, even if you don't necessarily look for resolution, find a place where you're comfortable expressing it before it turns into something bigger, because it will if it goes unexpressed. Again, even if you don't want a solution, if you're having some kind of conflict in any of your interpersonal relationships, please find that truth and find a way to convey it, because if you don't, it will turn into resentment and it will become a bigger issue. So I'm so grateful to Monica for doing the show and for instilling that lesson. Here's one that I kind of came up with in regards to relationships. This could work for jobs too. This could work for anything, really. And it's, does something nurture me more than it tortures me? And I know that feels like kind of extreme, but I think it's also about accepting people and like meeting them where they are. And a lot of us have some difficult relationships in our lives where we choose, because the benefit is greater, to continue forth in the relationship. Maybe it's someone we work with that we have to learn to tolerate because the nurture of the job, the nurturing elements that it's giving you outweigh the torture. So again, meet people where they're at. And if it's something that you absolutely can't accept, then find a way to remove it, remove yourself from that situation, because if it's torturing you more than it's nurturing you, it's not worth it. This is not really about relationships anymore, but this was just like a big takeaway for me this year. It was a quote from Dan Harris. It was a concept that I heard him talk about on his podcast, 10% Happier. It's a concept that he refers to as second arrow suffering. It's when you feel terrible about something that you can't control, and then you allow yourself to feel bad about the original bad feeling. So the reason it's called second arrow suffering is because you're the one that shoots the second arrow into yourself. I think a really good example for me personally was at the beginning of the year when the fires happened in LA. I mean, it was like a devastating thing for anyone who was really looking to, if you're empathetic, if you care, especially if you live in Los Angeles, like we all know people that lost something. I don't know anyone that didn't know someone who had lost a home. And I remember feeling devastated by all of it, by the magnitude of it, by the empathy that I was feeling for the folks that I know who did lose their homes, by my own sadness for losing neighborhoods that I cared about, places that I had gone, restaurants I was mourning, just the beauty of it. Like it always had been my dream to live in the Palisades. And I while I didn't lose a home, I lost that too. And the idea of the second arrow is that I was then making myself feel worse by going, well, you don't deserve to feel bad because you didn't lose anything. Empathy is not zero sum. It's really hard to remember that sometimes, but empathy is not zero sum. You are allowed to have hurt about something, even if your situation isn't quote unquote as bad as somebody else's. And I'm really going to try to put down that second arrow suffering. I'm really going to try to put that bow down and not shoot myself with going down rabbit holes of feeling bad about my initial bad feeling of, oh, I don't even deserve to feel bad about this because I have it better than this person. And doing that weird comparison thing that we are all likely to do at one point or another. So I really appreciate Dan for putting a name on it, because I had thought about that before. I had thought about this kind of second circle of shit feelings about, oh, something bad happened to me that makes me feel bad. And then I examine that bad feeling and I go, well, who am I to even feel bad about this? And it becomes this like kind of like the earth has these different layers of crusts and this bad feeling on top of this shitty bad feeling. And then a third bad feeling about why do I feel bad about feeling bad? You see where I'm going with this? It becomes like this weird nesting doll of torture, and it does not have to be. So I really appreciate that. Another thing that I really tried to practice in 2025 that I'm going to hopefully sit in and honor more in 2026 is the law of detachment. I really love the concept of the law of detachment, and that is more in line with becoming a little more spiritual, a little more believing in a higher power, a little more trusting of that higher power, whatever that might be for you. And the quote that I like around it is, if God allows me to have it, then I will have it. It's sitting in the belief that if something is meant for you, it will find you. I really love the law of detachment there. Like use it as salve on a wound that's healing. Use it as a way to propel yourself into forward momentum. If something is really meant for you, it will find you. You don't need to mourn someone who treated you poorly or mourn a job that you lost that maybe wasn't promised to you, or maybe it was only supposed to be in your life for a certain amount of time. I think the law of detachment is just like a really freeing principle, and it's very comforting, and I'm grateful to keep working towards my belief in it. So here's another little quote that I liked that really resonated with me this year. Again, I wish I knew where I got this, but I think this isn't necessarily like that novel of a concept. I think you've all probably heard this before, and it's that we don't see things the way they are, we see them as we are. It's really easy to get caught up in our own perception, in our side of the story, in things, without doing the work of understanding why you have a certain point of view in life. This is where therapy is so important. This is where groups like 12-step or mentorship programs, but especially I really want to highlight the importance of therapy here, because you need an unbiased third party to hold up a mirror to you and show you that your perspective isn't necessarily the truth. It's just your perspective. And it's shaped by all of your life experiences. And it's shaped by your trauma. And it's shaped by, Carl Jung talks about the shadow self. So much of our behavior is coming from a place of unconsciousness, and it is ultimately shaping our general beliefs about things. So find a way to zoom out, right? If you are just listening to this and you're like, wow, I have been spiraling about this problem at work. I have been spiraling about this fight I had with my partner. I have been wondering why I feel like this person doesn't want to be friends with me anymore. Whatever it is that you have just been fixated on and can't seem to find any kind of relief in your thought pattern about it, zoom out. Be like, what is triggering to me about this? What part of me is lighting up and experiencing pain that maybe might come from something deeper, that maybe might come from something that's a little bit older, that maybe isn't part of the problem at all, but it's whatever shapes your point of view, your POV, right? Like we see things as we are. And when we can remember that in regards to other people having strong reactions around us, it'll also help us feel more compassionate towards each other. And that's certainly something that I'm trying to work towards. All right. Finally, let me play another video to wrap this up. Again, I found this guy on TikTok, and I'm so glad I did, because the sentiment that he shares in this video is so beautiful. So let's watch this together.
I think you should be ridiculously optimistic about this life. I think you should dream bigger than you could ever imagine. I think you should pick goals that scare the life out of you. And I think you shouldn't listen to anyone that tells you to be realistic. And I know not everyone is going to agree with that. I know a lot of people like to hate on that. But why not? Do you want to tell yourself for the rest of your life that you can't do it? Do you want to put yourself down? Do you want to aim small? Or do you want to aim as big as you possibly can? And at absolute worst, if you fail, you end up exactly where you would have been anyway. To chase big dreams is to reach for a better person, a better self. It's to live, in my opinion. Why dream if it isn't bigger than we could ever imagine? I think in 2026 you're going to achieve things that are so big you didn't even dream them. I think you should be so optimistic about what you can do in this life, because you never know. You might end up proving yourself right.
Thank you to that creator for that video. Got me a little emotional. That's why I saved it and wanted to share it. And I'm going to close out this New Year's episode by talking to anyone who's listening as if I'm just talking to myself, because ultimately I'm the one that needs to hear this, right? For 2026, believe in yourself, please. Know that whatever you're going through, it's for the greater good. It really is. You can do it. Like, you've gone through things that you did not think that you could get through. You've done it. You've absolutely done things that the young version of you would be so proud of learning about. So follow your dreams, honor your heart, be in your truth, reward yourself always, even when you feel like you don't deserve a reward. Do things that you love, that feed you spiritually. Be in touch with the people you love. Risk it all. Because it's so much better to look back and know that you tried than to know that you doubted yourself. You deserve better than that. Have the best 2026 ever. Thank you all so much for listening. Bye.